Granny Hite versus the United States, Part 2. Before the cherries were ripe again, she had her second batch, although they had nothing to do with the first, but it showed how the hollow was altering. This new lot was announced one day by a brisk young man in a flannel shirt and high-laced boots. He lifted hat politely when she answered his knock. "Good morning, ma'am. May we brush out a stake line across your land?" "What for?" asked Granny, astonished. "Preliminary state highway survey." Granny blinked. "The engineers figure that through traffic will save 18 miles or approximately 30 minutes if the new road goes down Cat Track Hollow and around Coal Mountain." Granny reached for the holt of her chair, the one Horace had bent over. "Who sent you here?" "Highway Commission. Yours is the first house we've come to." He looked at it admiringly. "Chestnut and cedar timbers, aren't they? You're really tucked away here. May we proceed?" "Land o' Dan," said Granny faintly, growing good and angry. "No!" "But it will mean great things for this valley." "What kind of things?" The young man smiled patiently. "Why, progress. Cars by the dozens, gasoline pumps, inns. You people will have a chance to make real money selling off your backwoods stuff, furniture, weavings, down by the roadside." He slowed down under her steady frown. "Who owns the piece below yours, ma'am?" "You don't know who? You haven't talked to him?" "No, we came in from above and are working down. Grandsir Beckett owns that piece. He's a terrible fast man with a squirrel gun. He don't hold with poking about in his laurel." "Good Lord, do we have to call on the government and the militia?" Granny's eyes grew snapping bright. For the second time she did a little fibbing. She knew exactly where Grandsir was, and it wasn't where she pretended. "Shouldn't be surprised if Grandsir was to come through the rhododendrons any minute. If I was a trespasser, I'd get." "Yes, ma'am. We're instructed to avoid trouble, if any, and leave the argument to the lawyers." A cold prickle struck Granny, though the day was warm. Lawyers. The holler didn't have any such. But she felt ashamed of herself, being rude to the young man on her doorstep. "Any more in your party?" "3. They're waiting down by the creek." "Call them, and they'll give you each a piece of strawberry shortcake. Grandsir Beckett is a terrible fighter, but he won't shoot sitting men." The way those bronze, healthy fellows tore into her shortcake did her a heap of good. It reminded her of the 2 strangers the year before. But her mind had clomped swift and hard against letting them run lines across her land. They accepted this with, "We'll report what you tell us, ma'am." As the leafage closed behind them, she called, "Nathan Beckett, you come out of that lean-ter." Grandsir came out. He hadn't exactly run away from trouble. He'd only sidestepped it a mite, as a man's apt to do who's 96 and bashful. Happening to pass by moments earlier, he stopped in because he smelled the cookery. "Tell me what that talk means," Granny said fiercely. "It means change." "Is that good like they say, or bad like I think?" "It's bad. Highways," said Grandsir Beckett, shuddering, "are awful things. I crossed one once at Marionborough. Great charging chariots. Chased me for full furlongs before I reached the other side." "If the highway comes down our holler, will it be full of such rush and scurry?" "And beller and stench and be nasty and of all the pretty places. They'll lay axe to the grand trees, to the maples that turn reddy gold in the fall, and the oaks that have been marching up the slope and down like British redcoats here hundreds of years. It's a time of fearful trouble ahead for the holler, Nathan Beckett. How you fixin' to deal with this problem?" "I'll put up a sign, 'Keep out,' traps, and set guns. Prosecutors will be violated." "That will tell 'em." "'Twon't be enough. They'll be back with soldiers and lawyers and axes. There's going to be ripping and rending and uprooting. The end of things long loved and deep enjoyed. They'll crash through fern and laurel, right smack through your own chop barrel and copper worm." "I haven't any such," cried Grandsir. He added, "I'll go now and move 'em higher up the cove." "I," said Granny, "am going down to the store to talk to Amos Toller." Even before she reached the store, she could see that the news was there ahead of her. A dozen persons were on the porch craning at a Marionborough newspaper tacked to the wall. "It says here," Link Yockey's voice cracked. "3 lanes wide," Beckett traced the words with his stump of a finger. "Well," said Granny, arriving, "what are we hollerers going to do about it?" "Hold a meeting." "A whole lot of meetings. Keep 'em out like our people have always done with government folk." Amos Toller came to his doorway. Postmaster and delegate to the Republican state conventions, he was the respected eyes and ears of the settlement. "Friends and neighbors," he counseled, "this here has been a long spell a-comin', but hit's inevitable. Ever since our forefathers left Tidewater, clumb Smoky Gray Mountain, and strode down the frothy run, this republic has been on the march. By Indian Trace, Buffalo Trail, Cart Road, and finally by Turnpike. Here in this deep holler, some turned aside to catch breath. It's a snug, pleasant valley, but progress, though sometimes slower than Link Yockey's mill wheel, though it often balks and grunts, it lurches on. "And what about my mill?" Link Yockey was taller than most, his voice higher too. "This says the run will be straightened between concrete banks, and the map shows it going slam through my mill. Where will you folks take your turns of corn to?" "It shows an abutment made out," Philura Vasey, "right where the meeting ground is, right on the pulpit." "I tell you we're beat," insisted Amos. "Government's a powerful thing. When it tells us move over, we have to pull our toes back or be trod on, same as the Shawnees and Cherokees before us." The word government did something to Granny. She recalled other visitors, those of a year back. They worked for the government. "Amos Toller, how far's Washington?" "It's a right smart steam ride." The storekeeper was puzzled at her vigor. "Why, Matty?" "You're going to hitch up right now and drive me to Marionborough in the cars." "No, there's hens to feed and stockings to wash, and somebody will have to promise to water my garden. The weather's hotting up. But you be ready, Amos, good and early tomorrow morning." "For the train, Matty? I don't understand." "Amos, you be there." She was at his store at daybreak. The road down the run, over and around the rocks, into potholes and out of splashy places, was known to Amos Toller like the littered shelves of his store. But before long, it was somewhat new to Granny. Alders and sugar maples, sycamores and birches caught the sun up. The lancing rays stirred warm scent of dying strawberry leaves, of clover and ripe hay, of elder and sweetbriar. Jolting and jarring miles of that, and they turned up beside Little Piney. She exclaimed with delight when the buggy wheels climbed into the glades of firs and pungent junipers. She caught breath and clung tight to the side rail when they came out on a shoulder of Coal Mountain and gazed down onto the hazy dark hills, twisty valleys, and winding water gaps. She'd nigh forgotten what a big world it was. At Marionborough she was dizzied by the chatter. The hurly-burly was all Grandsir had said, and she set her jaw. They learned at the depot that there wouldn't be a train for hours, so she made Amos search out the house of an old hollow neighbor who had married here in town. There she napped and supped, sending Amos homeward, and the friends took her again to the depot. The train came, and they, full of wonder, put her on it. The hour was night. The jounce and sway terrified Granny at first, but she got used to it and found spirit to take in the details of her car. 24 double seats on each side, with a window to each seat, and many people, all strangers to her, most of them asleep, and starry sky and black countryside flowing past the glass. The man with the pliers who took her ticket said he'd tell her when they came to Washington.